we were talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely no one in this country is clamouring for a Nines tournament. We have Magic Weekend and the Challenge Cup that the Aussies don't. I understand the desire to create events to promote the game, but spreading ourselves so thinly just dilutes what we serve up. It might not be as visionary, but putting the money behind a meaningful reserve grade competition would be a wiser use of our limited funds, or focus on marketing to sell out Magic, Summer Bash and Wembley, etc.
I tend to agree with what Lee said there in large swathes.
Yeah, there was a bit of back and forth with him and Alan Walker. So Alan says, not least, not more games. Quality over quantity at top flight level. Maybe Nines could work for development and or expansion. Expansion as in tasters for start-up clubs who'd find it difficult at first to get full game squads every week. Of course, the game, though, is 13. Lee then said, definitely for developments, but RL is already an exciting form of rugby. It was designed that way in 1895. Expansion should be with the 13-man game. Agree about too much rugby, Alan. I suspect, like the Auckland Nines, teams would only release fringe or youth players and stars would be injured, in inverted commas. Yeah, they definitely would not pick the front line guys. I think the expansion point, just to underline that as like a way Nines can be useful, the Cambridge Trojans, we know the South West League has kind of fallen in numbers, hasn't it, of sides and players being putting themselves available and that sort of stuff for the last year and this year. So they will be having built into their season some 13-a-side friendly almost games, and then a recurrence of Nines events, because that's how they can get more players readily available to compete, basically. So on that side of things, yeah, Alan and Lee are both right, aren't they?
I agree, yeah, absolutely.
Twilly Leaks said, regarding the Magic Weekend, in place of regular fixtures, play the Challenge Cup quarter-finals and maybe a couple of emerging nations international games.
We're just diluting the whole process here. I think either keep Magic Weekend in the format that it's in, because people plan. Do you know what I mean? If you don't know that you're going to be in, if you don't know if you're going to be in the quarterfinals of the Challenge Cup, how can you plan around?
People just won't buy the tickets in advance if they don't know that their team's playing,
which will impact on attendance. So I think either keep it the way it is, keep it the way it is, or scrap it.
Certainly, it should be, whether or not it's an extra fixture in the calendar is the question mark. But taking teams out and not knowing who's going to be there, I'm not sure. Maybe make the quarterfinals, an event in themselves, and have like 2 games played back to back but you lose the home field advantage for people. So maybe that might throw a spanner in there. But that's another event in this events-based sports market we now probably are closer to. But
if you
I
think
wouldn't
the semis
the Magic Weekend for it.
Semis are already played on neutral venues. I think you can't. It's tough to go back much further. I think the semis anecdotally aren't always particularly well attended, even so. So
no.
It's it's not
certainly of recent times.
I think you'd get be the law of diminishing returns if you did it on the quarters anyway.
But if you did this, you might draw in more people, I suppose, but not as much as you would be able to with Magic Weekend in its current guise, I don't suspect.
Yeah.
Tyler Casfan at Fev Tiger said, he asked Tom, do you have the link to the TalkSport spot?
I don't have the link to it. It's gone. It's in the midst of time. Tyler, if you want to hear it, and it is 2 weeks down the road now, I do have it on my phone because I WhatsApped it to my family. So I have got it. If you want to give me your mobile number, I can WhatsApp it over to you, Tyler, but it really isn't worth it. And I don't necessarily want to be the guy that uses his podcast to get the telephone number of a teenage boy. So you might just have to take my word for it, Tyler, that I was phenomenal.
Owen Hughes at OH_base said, glad you got to meet Scoots Mac and John Scott of 15. His name is John. That's Sarah's dad. Told you they were full of RL passion. Sarah replied, it's not John, it's the old man. Or Sarah and Helen's dad, which is how I think he was introduced. And apparently, when he said bye to me, he said bye to Tom, not Mark. So I don't give a shit out of his name. So old Jeff Scott can swing it.
John Scott is he's a legend in his own right. What a man. Bye, Tom. We sat there thinking,
I missed that because I was darting off to try and get ahead of the sort of
that Tom's coming across a lot more knowledgeable than he does on a normal podcast.
Chris McQueen, whatever he is, at Chris 80 said, So Ian Watson says, this was from the news from last week. So Ian Watson says Craig Kopchak gives 100% every time he goes on the field. Surely that's the minimum expectation for every Super League player.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, like their effort levels are at maximum, I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, Craig Kopchak, in fairness, has had a very good start to the season for Salford.
Yeah, that's just the sort of platitude coach speak that you get, isn't it?
Exactly.
But it's funny either way. David Powell at St David 2911 said, hashtag now then lads, RL coverage, this is on the TV coverage stuff that we've picked up over the last few weeks, so maybe these few points will wrap that up. Although it won't when we get to the news section and talk about the
get back on it,
the streaming. Anyway, RL coverage is far better since Super League than it has been in my lifetime. God bless Sky Sports. I agree, and also about the crowd stuff we talked about. I agree Headingley is the best atmosphere. I love going to Perpignan though, best away day. John Smallwood said, hashtag hey up lad. He's not quite got it, hasn't John yet, but it's close.
Get that. Now then lads.
He said, you were discussing crowd size in the NRL. Linked to that, why don't Sky organise cameras to show crowds? Often the camera is in the same stand as the crowd, therefore showing an empty side. Surely this is a negative publicity. Why? ?
The only thing I could... I've noticed the same thing as John. The only thing I can think is that perhaps it's just a bit of a coincidence that the place where they set up all the media stuff and the bigger stand in some of these places is where they put, where most of the people go, but...
Well, it's not Sky's decision, I suppose, where the stadium designers put the gantries and stuff. So, exactly. So that's probably why. And the one that stands out the most for me is Salford.
Yeah,
obviously. But yeah, it's noticeable at St Helens, at Huddersfield, at Wigan. In Huddersfield and Wigan's case, you often will find that you'll lose perspective in the size of the stadiums anyway. But then Huddersfield have really small crowds. They only get a quarter of the stadium full. Wigan only half the stadium full on a normal match. Well, just over half the stadium full on a normal match day. So yeah, I don't think they've got much choice in the matter. It might be the clubs want to think about how they allocate ticketing for those games, but people at Salford will want to sit in the taller stand with the season tickets, won't they? And that sort of thing. So yeah, Wigan do charge less for the opposite touchline as the touchline where the cameras are.
Oh really?
Yeah, and I think St Helens do the same.
Right.
But yeah.
Interesting stuff. There you go. We've not really answered it for you, John, but we've acknowledged it.
Yeah, I don't think it's Sky's fault.
No, I don't think so.
Ethan O'Gorman says, about the TV rights, Sky have the rights to the Championship, but they just refuse to show these games. And all the Championship games are on Sunday, so why they can't show it, I don't know.
That's a very good point.
Well...
We do have the right.
Yeah, that's a well-established fact by now, isn't it? And this is a well-trod-out question, and that Ethan asks, and he's right. We don't know why, other than they just don't want to. Sadly, that's the shame of it, isn't it?
Well, at the end of the day, listen, Sky's a commercial entity, and the way it makes its money is through subscriptions and through advertising. Okay, so they will make a decision based on what revenue they think they can generate showing something at 3 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. And if they think that a Grand Prix, which they will automatically put on, or if they think that a certain sporting event is going to generate them more advertising revenue than a Championship Rugby League fixture, which invariably it will do, I would suggest.
But also they will
make that decision.
The outside broadcast costs that they'll have to carry to show that game, to run that game, which they wouldn't necessarily have to show a rerun of football's greatest Zinedine Zidane or something.
Exactly.
That costs them nothing to just rerun out that sort of stuff. And then the F1, well, that's a big media empire in itself that runs the show itself almost in a lot of the camera stuff. I think you've just got your setup for your people talking.
F1 was a poor example.
But like even like Premier League football, those cameras aren't run by Sky necessarily. Parts of it will be, but think about the international broadcasting net that goes out with the same cameras effectively, so that all contributes into the pot, and whereas with Rugby League Championship stuff, they'll have to roll up with their own bands, their own stuff. The organisation itself isn't running the show for Sky to then piggyback off the back of the rights. It's the production company that works with Sky that'll have to fit those costs in. Unfortunately, that's for me.
It's the unfortunate reality.
I think it won't make for the cost of doing it. They won't make enough money back.
No.
For what the level of interest they think is there, unfortunately.
No, it is unfortunate, but yes.
But when you've only got 1,000 people turning up to games,
well, yeah, exactly.
Where
exactly,
we're doing it to ourselves. Fill the stadiums up, and then then maybe they'll think there's an audience there for it. I don't know. Right. Frogmore, so people knocking internet streams is fine if that's your opinion and you live in the country and can attend, but I'd take that over missing the game entirely being overseas. Not expecting an NRL Digital Pass level coverage, which is just TV simulcast, but something would be fine to get the game out there at least. I forgot who mentioned grouping the feeds together, and that already exists. They nailed it. That was Dom who mentioned that, wasn't it? I think Bernard's the biggest knocker, isn't he, of the internet streams, and I must clarify that Bernard lives in Ireland.
Yes.
And doesn't always have the capability to get over to games every single week or every season and that sort of thing. So internet streams is the only way he's going to find it to get it. But he did make a comment that one of the sort of knock off the Sky footage streams that was on YouTube had been shut down recently.
Oh, really?
And that meant he couldn't watch the Sky game, so he was like, well, after that's happened, what would I do for a one camera stream right now?
Good lad. Who's this young man?
Rich Wilkinson, Leeds fan, says, now then lads, love the pod as always. In a right to reply, I don't fully disagree with anything that was said over the Ferris incident. I pretty much agree with Tom, and I am on board that Ferris had too much rage in that tackle. I'm fully on board with players, in this case Ferris, having a duty of care, even in the heat of battle. 6 games is the ban. It looks like the RFL are getting tough. That's good. They need to stick with it. On the same theme, then, Bernard JKD said, can barely believe Ferris got 6 games. Rugby Union would have given a full year ban. Lots of mums will stop kids playing after that. Just remember, even if Gildart does come back, the damage to his spine is permanent. Spinal plates don't regenerate.
Well, I think everyone's first of all glad that it wasn't more serious in terms of what could have happened to Oliver Gildart. So that's...
Well, we don't know the full outcome yet, but...
No, but it's... he's walking, he's on his feet, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? So... And, there is an argument to say that perhaps he would have... I don't know if Rugby Union would necessarily have handed out a full year ban for that. I don't think you see those types of tackles, particularly in Rugby Union, because of the nature of the sport. I'd like to know what's comparable in terms of actions where people have been banned for similar incidents or similarly negligent
They tend to hand out much bigger bans for, tackles where you put someone in a dangerous position by raising the legs than rugby league do.
Yes.
And they tend to not just be reactive to injuries on those sorts of bans. They tend to hand out bigger bans. This is just anecdotally what I know from listening to snippets on the radio about people getting bans. Yeah. Eye gouging and stuff like that, you tend to get a bigger ban.
They take that very seriously.
That's more common.
It's far more common because of the scrummaging, isn't
it? So they do seem to have a more heavy approach to handing out bans for these sorts of dangerous things, and they give automatic sin binings for high tackles and tip tackles and that sort of stuff, don't they? They tend to do more so than you get in rugby league, certainly. But I think we covered. Did we cover?
We don't need to smash over the Brett Ferris thing too much more, do we? I don't think.
I would have preferred a longer ban. 6 weeks though is still a significant ban when you put it in the context of how many bans of that length of time you actually see handed out by the RFL disciplinary panel. The fact that panel hands out probably too short a ban too many times and probably goes for generally lower gradings unless there's been an injury is a concern to me, and I would love these tackles to be grade E whether the person's going to be ruled out for 2 months or manage to come back in the same game. If you've caused the potential for the same thing, it's just that player's a bit more flexible or what have you, then I don't know. I don't see those. I think you don't cut the thing out with that sort of level of, he didn't get hurt, so this dangerous contact is just a grade A and no one match ban with an EGP, so no ban, or this one's actually put the guy out for 2 months, so we have to treat it more serious.
No, it should be the injury shouldn't be what designates the grading. It should be the action,
obviously,
not the consequences.
The more severe the offence, the more likely there is to be an injury. But you want to knock these offences back. But we've covered at length last year loads of times. There's blogs that I've written about so check that out, superleaguepod.blogspot.co.uk. About the disciplinary processes and stuff, and I guess we just have to draw a line under this. I don't think the ban was as much as I wanted it to be, but it is a heavy ban in the context of what the RFL's independent tribunal normally give out.
Okay. Well, at the risk of not wanting us to go around the garden on this one again, I'll let you have the last word on that. What did Bernard get in touch with us over next?
Oh, this was a thing that we forgot to